the November meeting and I think the December meeting where we had some homeowners from different developments coming over, expressing their dissatisfaction with their, I guess, developers and what was done to them. So I think it's 2 or 3 locations, and we just started in November. I think we talked about it or discussed it in December. I'd like to see if we could get together as a council with our attorney and see what we could do for these homeowners with these problems. One is up at Barium with Prestige. I think the other 2 are down towards Weathers Creek and Sanders Ridge. So I don't know if it would be 2 council people and the mayor and the lawyer, but I'd like to see, or at least extend that we're listening and let's try and help.
We'll copy that in just a moment.
Okay, thank you. And that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Jazinski?
I don't have much for comments. Eddie covered. The only concern I really had was following up on the developers and the community concerns with that. Just welcome everybody to the new year and all the new faces here at the table. I'm just amazed at how many new faces we have, not just council members, but staff as well. So excited for the year to come.
Ms. Harris?
I don't have much either, Mr. Mayor, but Happy New Year, everybody. I hope everybody had a good holiday, and happy birthday yesterday, Emily.
Thank you.
Nobody else get jealous, I just know Emily's birthday. But I hope you had a good birthday.
I did, thank you.
No problem. And
Do
I,
you want us to sing?
if we can
Don't sing for me,
it
but
off.
Josh's is on Wednesday and Andrew's is on Sunday. So you sing for them.
Thank you for putting that out.
Yep.
I'm sure they're
Yep.
happy about that.
Yep, go ahead, let y'all know about it. Yep, Andrew's on Sunday.
Well, happy birthday to everybody in January. And the last thing I had on my list was an update on the Tally Street project.
Well, I have 2 updates. The first being, we finally got basically a response from the surveyor. They've got the properties kind of surveyed out that we're going to need to talk to regarding any easements or right-of-ways we're going to have to require. Basically, the question that they have for me now is, do we want to include it all on a single plat or individual plats for each property? It's much easier to do with individual plats on each property. However, the cost could be a question. So right now, they're putting together a scope and a fee to see what the cost difference would be before we determine which way we want to move forward with that. So that's where we are with the right-of-way. And there's like 40. It's quite a bit that are going to be impacted. So it's.
Okay, have we spoken with any of them yet?
We haven't. We kind of want to get a little bit of the financial estimate before we start those conversations.
When will they have that ready?
Hopefully, this came to me in November, and I'm hoping that after this holiday season that they'll start getting me some information here. So hopefully anytime soon. And the second update I have is finally, after about 8 months of dealing with Duke Energy, they have come back, and this is exactly what the email says. I had mentioned that the relocation of power poles and equipment from the utility companies is probably going to be more expensive than the acquisition of land. So Duke just says they don't have any prior rights, and since they don't, they can go out and acquire their own right-of-way for the project, and it says they don't mind doing that, but it could take a while since Duke doesn't typically do this. Something that concerns the town regarding time, the town can do this. So I got this on the 18th of December. What I had done, because to me this is basically written, it could be written in a different language. None of it makes sense to me. So I've sent this to our NCDOT Division 12, basically the supervisor of the discretionary program, to kind of explain this to me in layman terms and let me know exactly what this means and how she advises us to proceed. Mentioned this came in on the 18th. I'd sent an email to her 2 weeks ago. I did not get a response. I sent another one this morning, so I'm waiting to see what I find out about that.
So these are power poles that would be in the.
That's right.
Right away, if you will.
Basically, power poles that you're going to have to move in order to meet, whether it be the ADA slope of where the sidewalk's going to go, or they're just in the way of where the sidewalk is, and you can't meander it enough for the clearance.
Just put it right in the middle.
Yeah.
Do we know how many it is?
It's a good number. I think on tally it was about 12, so it's a pretty decent number.
So Andrew, it's possible this could happen this year.
The construction, that would be very ambitious, but if we can at least get the right of way and bid it out for construction, I think that would be that's still ambitious, but at least that's something to look, a goal to try to achieve.
How many years since this project was birthed?
This, I believe the original discretionary fund awardance of this project was sometime around 2017, but it did sit dormant until about 22.
That's all, thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Barbara? Mr. Harris?
I just have a couple of things. One is that because I'm going to the Central Government training in Asheville on the 15th and 16th, I will be the first time in all the years we've had the MLK Day, I will not be able to be here. That's kind of a little sad because I've been there, but what I've not said, I realize this thing's scheduled at the same time. So I'm going to be doing that training during that period of time. The other thing is, coming back on the council, one of the big thing I think is great that the staff report. I enjoy having that information out here, and I think that's a great addition to this report. I'm really pleased to see that. That's been a big plus. And I'd like to thank Josh and his team for when we had a condition back here a couple weeks ago that keep anything getting out of hand, keep people calm in the neighborhood there. Over hunters and the neighbors, and they were able to get game warden there, got at least got it calm and really appreciate them getting over there. The beach down the guns both ways could be ugly.
Yeah, that can be a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah. And that was the whole purpose, get everybody calm.
As long as you're not ding dong ditching, it seems to be all right.
None of that's all right.
Great, thank you. Again, thank everybody for your comments, for staff. Not jokingly, can we get a staff to include council update, maybe to include birthdays on that list? That also gives us a directory of doesn't have to have a whole lot of information on it, just birthday,
Yes, sir.
That's all I've got, that's outside the agenda, so, anything from staff?
The only thing I had was just a reminder that George alluded to is the MLK breakfast is next Friday, the 16th. Starts at 8:30, so plan to be there if you're coming around 8:15. I believe Ms. Watson needs a count by Wednesday if you're coming, so we know how much breakfast to order. So if you'd let her know after this meeting or sometime tomorrow, that'd be good.
Or now, if you know you
Just raise your hand.
Raise your hand.
Anything else from anybody?
So I have a follow-up question on something I brought up last month, I believe, about the event calendar. Do we have any updates on that? And I guess in the request of the update for council on birthdays, if we had also a birthday calendar that we could subscribe to.
Yeah.
That would kind of just keep us right on track.
We've looked at it a little bit. We reached out to Civic Plus, I think it is, that does the website, to see if there's a way for us to sync that calendar that's on there and have you all subscribe to that. But I don't think we've heard anything back yet from them, so we'll follow up on that. But yeah, we're working on it.
Nothing else from staff?
The only other thing I wanted to mention, sir, is I know the well, I think there are managers' notes, agendas that y'all have had before, and so I'd like to try and play around with a little bit of a newer format where there's more of a memo in front of each agenda item. Unless you all are specifically tied to that format, we can explore it next month and get some feedback and tweak it from there. But want to have the same idea, but just want to kind of do it a little bit differently, if that's okay.
Yeah, I had in the past shared a couple different surrounding community agendas that were much further detailed, with more memo notes and departmental notes, so I'm definitely open to that.
Okay.
Any other feedback? Again, as Mr. Harris said, staff reports look really good detail, so, you know, a lot of work goes into that, and so we appreciate that update. So it was good. I don't think anybody's married to, you know, particular formats, from my perspective. I don't know about Ms. Bartlett and Mr. Harris, but it's relatively new for them anyway, so coming back on council, but yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
We'll try that, and we can take feedback next month and see how it looks.
All right, next item on the agenda is a discussion of the live building. Just wanted to know.
Yes, sir. So we currently have the Light Building up on North Main Street, right past the fairgrounds, listed for sale. We did receive a verbal offer on the building, and wanted to get y'all's feedback on that. You know, I think we've owned the Light Building since October of '24, somewhere around there. So don't have a lot of background on it, but the offer is lower than our current asking price. I know there were some different metrics. I think they stayed in the building for a little bit longer, and I think they paid us a little bit of rent for those few months that they were in there. But again, don't know kind of the history or backstory, but just wanted to get y'all's input on the details of that offer and what y'all thought about moving forward, and or keeping hold of the building or anything else.
I don't know if anybody, again, just peripheral view, if we want to negotiate it, do we want to kind of come up with negotiation in closed session, see if we can come back in open session, or we present something. That's a minimum. I think that's perfect. Okay. We can do that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Since we're acting things to that closed session, and Mr. Now asked about the meeting with the attorney, can we just add that to our closed session conversation as well? Okay. Is that a minimum to you?
That'd be great, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item is the Santa Ridge Pump Station.
Thank you, sir. So there's a memo under the agenda briefing items about this. The short version is when they planned to build the pump station, they were going to build it on one site. As they developed the community, they decided to build it on the other side of the creek. I think that was going to be more advantageous as they developed the community. At some point along in there, somebody forgot to change the plat and the location of that pump house. So the town owns a lot where the original pump house was going to go that's vacant, and the pump house has been sitting on HOA owned property. We took over maintenance of the pump station 2 years ago, I think, something like that. So we've been maintaining it like we do all pump stations, but it's not actually on our property. And then for some reason in there too, the HOA started to get the utility bills, the electric bill for it, presumably because it's on their property. So they have been paying that bill since December of 2022, and they have asked for reimbursement of that. Again, it's something that historically we would have paid because we would take over the pump station and take over the maintenance and take over the utility bill. So We have looked at that and think that that's appropriate. What we would do is just prepare a budget amendment to account for that change and reimburse that to them if y'all are agreeable to that. We have already taken over the bills going forward, so December 14th or so, we switched it over into our name so that going forward we're paying it, and now it's just handling the back, sort of the back pay of that reimbursement.
Any opposition to paying that?
I don't have any on that with the bill. What about the property flip is my question.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that one as well.
Okay.
Are the easements in place for the Weathers Creek High School? I believe that was one of the things that this was all hinging on.
Yeah, so we're actually meeting with a couple of folks from the HOA tomorrow, Benji and I, to review what's needed as far as the easements and the changing of the properties there. And the goal would be to have this taken care of, but do those at the same time. So straighten out the property, get the easements that we need, reimburse them for those utility bills, and handle that all sort of at once and get it all taken care of.
Yeah, I think some of the stance before is, I personally wouldn't want to reimburse it until we have all the easements and everything else in place.
Yeah.
Being that, if they tell us to go kick rocks, then we have to go eminent domain or whatever other route. Just more trouble for ourselves when it doesn't need to be. As far as the property flop, you said the town owns that vacant lot. How large is that?
It's not very large. It's probably as big as the tables here. I mean, it's not,
Wow.
yeah, very small. So,
So
yeah.
as we talked about, this was a swap in the property, or?
So really, we would, so we're gonna end up, everything works out with all of our wastewater plans, we're gonna end up abandoning that pump station. So we will just need an easement for a line. We need to figure out where that's gonna run. But we will really probably just deed that property back to the HOA, get the easement that we need, and then be done with it.
Again, question, any concerns with the amount, the dollar amount at this point?
If everything's verified through the bills,
Yep.
there's no dispute with the dollar amount.
Yeah, we've checked all this.
And we're gonna wrap it all up in one?
Yeah, we'll do all that at the same time and make sure, yeah, it's sort of together but not together.
If we're gonna abandon that pump station with, I believe that's with the building of the new pump station at Shin Creek, right? So that's not even part of the larger wastewater plan, this is part of what's already in place. So do we even need to deed it over to us, or just pay the bill until that's abandoned and get our easements and it's just the community's property? Cause isn't that a deed to redeed?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah. We could, I think that'll depend on how the discussion goes tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think six one way, half dozen the other for us. I mean, yeah, we're gonna keep maintaining it and paying the utility bills, so.
All right.
Good?
Yeah, I'm good. So we'll prepare a budget amendment and just put that on consent agenda for Thursday.
Sounds good, all right.
That it's in lieu of the easements and everything, right? We're not just making a budget amendment, it's in lieu of the easements and everything else going through?
So the budget amendment will just be so that the funding is there, and then I won't sign the check until we get
Alright.
everything else, yeah, figured out, yeah. I don't sign checks actually, but you know.
I saw Terrence looking at you.
Gina too.
Yeah. Next item is the overview of the town council upcoming meeting, Thursday. Want to walk us through that?
Sure. First few items are routine. If we jump down to the consent agenda, several sets of minutes for your approval. The first, so 5, 6, 7E. 7E under the consent agenda is some brief changes or some minor changes to the open burning ordinance that you all passed last month. The fire department was all good with the changes that Chief Watson presented, and then the fire department shared it with the fire marshal, and the fire marshal said he wanted some more minor changes, so it doesn't affect much, but we wanted to make those changes and bring that back to y'all to formally approve. But anything you want to mention, Josh?
Yeah, the only thing that was, it changed mainly, a wording, section A to, one, change the name to a site survey. It changed about the, some wording in the state fire code adopted. There was some previous ordinance that was taken from the existing ordinance prior to this one. There was a, entity that was in there that no longer exists, and they asked us to remove that. They wanted to make sure that section 91603, that line, that they just, the only thing fire marshal enforces is the fire code, nothing with the burning. And that was pretty much, most of the changes, and they asked that our survey form be changed to a pre-site survey with the town of Troutman's logo on it instead of the Troutman Fire Department's logo. So, nothing that changes the actual ordinance. It was just some wording they wanted, asked that included.
Next is approval of design review board case facade for Mavis Tire at 186 Home Improvement Street. Questions on that? Next is a resolution to amend the budget. So this is an actual budget ordinance for some of the budget amendments that you all saw back in November, I think it was. Maybe October? October. So in the October packet, there were budget amendments that you all reviewed and approved. It was for the sale of some surplus vehicles, I think, for the police department, some additional revenue for Parks and Rec, and something in Public Works.
So it was insurance proceeds,
Insurance
additional
proceeds, I'm
athletic
sorry.
registrations for Parks and Rec, and insurance proceeds for both Public Works and Police Department.
So those were all in your packets. You all approved those on the consent agenda in October. The problem is the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act says that you all have to make changes to the budget through an ordinance or resolution. And all y'all had were just budget amendments. So there was no accompanying ordinance or resolution. So what you have in here is an ordinance that just makes those budgetary changes. Nothing will actually change on the budget. We're just shoring up that sort of paperwork, if you will, government red tape that we like. Any questions on that? Pretty straightforward. Gina, did I miss anything?
Yes, you're good.
Good, okay. So item H is consider approval of staggering the ABC board expiration terms. That's a request that came to us from the ABC board. Everything, or every term on the board was aligned at the same time, so everybody came on or came off all at once, and they want to stagger those just so there's a little more continuity between board members. Any questions on that?
Is there a proposed staggering?
Yeah, so those are, those term expiration dates are in your packet there.
Other than that last page, I believe, of the information.
Yeah, so Mr. Getzinger's term would expire at the end of 27, Ms. Cavan's at the end of 28, and then Mr. Cash is at the end of 29.
Very good.
All right.
Question.
Yes, sir.
In terms of Mr. Edmiston will no longer be served after his term, how soon does he put out kind of a request for board members? My question is, how soon did he put it out? Is it at the point that they notify us, or is it sooner?
Put out a request for
Yeah.
applicants?
Right. Just when it's
He
vacant?
didn't. He just said he had some applicants and none, and he
Okay.
put them in. But
Okay.
we didn't advertise this one.
Okay. Sounds good.
Did we have any pending applicants for the ABC board? Or any other board?
So there's 4 now instead of 3?
Three. Wes is not running right now.
So who took Mr. Edmondson's spot?
Steve Cash has applied.
Applied, okay, because it was sounding like he was already on.
No,
I think the way this is worded, it looks like it would be if he's appointed for,
Yeah, that's correct, sorry.
26,
Yeah.
Okay.
that would be his term date, 29.
Good there?
We're good.
All right. Item I is approval of the engineering contracts for Phase 1 and 2 of the Eastern Wastewater Transmission Project. So those contracts are in your packets. Obviously, they're broken up into the 2 phases. The one thing I have to mention is I got an email earlier today from Shelby who said that they had put a placeholder in the contracts for survey work. If you look in the very last pages of those contracts, there's a chart of all the different costs that you probably can't read in this printed version because it's very small. But there are 2 lines that have red font on them. And again, those were placeholders, and those were grossly under budget or underestimated. I mean, so.
Both of them?
Yes. Well, one of them, I mean, in the scheme of $850,000, $900,000, it depends. So, let me flip to my notes here. So Phase 1 would change by about $70,000. It goes from 177 to 247, and Phase 2 would change by about $154,000. So the new total would be $315,980. And she said that this would be like the maximum amount of them, especially in Phase 2, not knowing what they're going to need to fully survey. So there may be areas where they don't need to do as much survey. Of course, they won't bill for that if they don't do the work. But she wanted to build all that in so that it's accounted for in case we do need it.
So you said Phase 2 was an adjustment from 161.5 to what?
Yep. 247,755.
That's not too bad.
No, it's the second phase, and really there's so much sort of unknown with the second phase, so she is accounting for more in that one. And she did also note that they're subcontracting out the survey for both of those, and they just billed it forward, so there was no markup or anything on those. She tried to keep the costs as low as she could for us.
That's great.
So since he's not here, you said that they'll come in under budget?
Yes, sir.
Just check.
So we will make that change in the budget amendments for Thursday and update those numbers. But outside of that, happy to answer any of the questions for the contract, but they're both about the same, just 2 different phases, and they're pretty straightforward. And then feel free to ask any questions still, but the next item is just all of the associated budget amendments. There's a memo in there that overviews everything. The ordinance, budget amendment, all that's included in the next item as well.
And these are utility fund amendments?
Yes, sir. The utility fund amendments, and what we've done is appropriated fund balance for, I think it was 675,000 or so. And then the other 1 million we put in as an amendment to change the grant funds. We know there's been some discussion about reallocating some of the state appropriations that we've gotten to wastewater projects that were previously for water projects. So that request of the state hasn't been made and approved and sent back to us. But by the time we need that funding, we should have all that sorted out. So this budget amendment will put in money from fund balance to get us started, and then we'll be able to reallocate those funds later. Any other questions on it? Okay, yes, sir. Next section is recognitions and presentations. Y'all might recognize the name Paul Hinkle. He said he would come back to this meeting to accept his, well, I won't ruin the surprise, to accept his accolades for serving on the town council. So he'll be present to be recognized for his service. And then I made sure we put the audit after that so that he didn't have to stay for it. The auditors will be here to present our audit from last year. Gina, do you want to give a brief comment on that?
Yeah, so the auditors will be here to present our 2025 audit. We have submitted it to the Local Government Commission, and we have got tentative email approval of it, but we don't have the final approval of it, so we'll say draft unless something happens between now and Thursday that we get the actual final document. You'll see everything. We saw the growth in the budget and revenues, expenditures that we've seen throughout the last couple of years. There will be one conversation from them. We did have a budget violation in the water and sewer fund. We were $35,262 over our budget ordinance, but because the amount was so small, the state agreed it didn't need to be a finding because it was an immaterial account. But we do have to account for it in the report, and we did have to modify the audit to reflect that.
Very good.
And just for full transparency, that basically means that at some point we had that and we didn't account for it. We didn't do a budget amendment to actually account for it and revise the budget, so.
Yeah, and it was actually, it actually related to pension liability. So it's not as if we went out and wrote a check for $35,000. It was truly an accounting issue that we had to account for. And that's why the state was also very much like, it's not a finding.
That's right. Well, they had to find something, so. There is a presentation summary in your packets, and then they will bring hard copies for anybody that wants one, and then we'll have a final approved copy to post on the website as well.
Is that the 3-ring binder that we get? That we got last year? Or
Do they
no,
spell
it was in
it?
I
a
think-
little clear folder.
No, she brings, like a little small.
I think it's like spiral bound.
Yeah, I think it's a spiral bound
Yeah.
report,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Next section is new business. Those first several items are appointments or reappointments to various boards. I know some of those folks are here if you all want to allow them to introduce themselves. Do you have anything to know about any of those?
Mr. Cash did not make it. So if I'm to, design a new board, Mr. Parsons is here. And he would be taking the unexpired term of Mr. Harris on the board.
I couldn't hear you.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Excuse me, my name is Richard Parsons. Been a resident of Troutman for 20 years. Love the town, been here quite a while now. Enjoyed everything, enjoyed seeing the growth in the town over the years. I raised my kids here. My kids went to Troutman Elementary, then middle school, then high school. Just thoroughly enjoyed being here, and I wanted to potentially come on with the town and design the review board and offer my personal services to, whatever, however I could be, whatever I
Any questions for Mr. Parsons?
Have you served on a board before?
I did several years ago. Yeah, for a few months, I served.
On the design review?
Design review board, yeah.
Any other questions? Mr. Parsons, you normally have an hour, is that?
Well, a little bit of background about myself. I'm a I work as a design engineer in my day job for Gaylor Electric in Mooresville. Excuse me, I'm a little bit under the weather. I've been in the engineering drafting scene for since about 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. And it's kind of my wheelhouse. That's kind of why, I kind of wanted to come in and maybe join the design review board with prints, looking at topography and all types of stuff. I did a lot of underground electrical design work. We're actually, the company I work for, we're building a lot of the data centers you hear about all around the state and outside, all over the country, actually. Actually, I gotta go to Indiana next week. This kind of stuff, so, this is what we're about.
Thank you. Thanks for putting your name in the hat. Appreciate volunteers as always, and appreciate you stepping up to do that.
All right.
Thank you. And since you're replacing me, I'd like to see that West Virginia man over here. Is that a lobbying effort?
That's a small mistake, so that's why we're trying to raise that.
All right.
And then for reappointment, we have Karen Bankley, she's served the last 3 years on that board. And going back to ABC, also Kim Cabot, who has served the last several years on that board. Next is the Planning and Zoning Board. We have Michael Adney, is that right? Okay. He is our inside alternate right now. And with Tanya leaving as inside voting member, you usually move that alternate up, so that's still your choice. But he's here if you have any questions for him. He's already serving as our inside alternate.
Great. Danny? Thank you. You're welcome. You can introduce yourselves to the board. Those who don't know you, there's probably a couple new folks, but
I've been in Troutman, I bought a new home here about a year ago. I've been in the area for 4 years. We moved out here with Billy Graham. That's where I work in Charlotte every day. And I was a consultant and a contractor in California for 30 years, so I did a lot of design review during that time. Just a lot of inspections and pretty much work and helped various cities from San Francisco and Oakland and various projects, some military, some non, some EPA, and some real small subdivision kind of work. So being on planning feels really good to me. It really does. So I've only had 3 meetings, I think, Andrew, is that correct? Something like over the window.
Oh, I learned a long time ago not to count.
That's about right, yeah.
So I don't know if voting or not voting is going to challenge me too much. My brain works the same way pretty much every time.
great. Thank you. Any questions for the staff?
Wasn't too long ago we appointed you to alternate, so.
Exactly.
Thank you for stepping up and willingness to now vote and be a permanent member. So again, appreciate it and welcome.
Thank you. I won't be shy asking questions. I limited questions to one.
All right.
And then with Mr. Agley, for consideration of appointment to that open position, then that would leave his inside alternate position vacant, and we have a applicant, Ms. Linda Bishop, and she's here tonight.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Linda Bishop, and I have been a resident 52 years. And I am retired for the last 10 years. And I recently opened a business. It's called Linda's Alabaster Box. It's right across the street from the fairground over there in the corner. I usually have an event every year to give to the needy and the poor. And the event is called the Be Blessed Day. Everything is free. And I am a cancer survivor over 26 years. And the reason how I was able to give the Be Blessed Day to the needy and the poor is when I had cancer. It was incurable. And believe it or not, I was out in the yard and I heard a voice tell me, I'm going to heal you from the cancer, but you have to take everything out of your house and give it to the needy and the poor. And this day is ordained by me, and I know that was the Lord. And I was obedient 26 years. It was a lot of hard work. But the needy and the poor, I had about 2 acres of land. I gave everything out of my house, and I've been healed from cancer. I never had taken any medication. I never have went through menopause. And I'm 70 years old and still going strong. Anyway, I'm glad that I'm able to serve this community. And I thank and I appreciate each and every one of you all for allowing me to be a part of this wonderful committee. And y'all are doing an excellent job.
Thank you. And welcome. We appreciate not only your service in your business, but thank you for putting your name in the hat as well. So, is there any questions for Ms. Bishop? I might be the only one on this board that might be here longer in the town of Troutman. That's only by age, so I'll leave it at that. And thank you.
All right, and then the last item under new business is consider the fiscal year 2027 budget calendar. So the very last page under new business is a calendar that outlines the dates that we're aiming for in terms of preparing the budget internally, but there are also 2 sessions for council to do some strategic planning and then some budgetary planning. So if you'll look at the February 18th, 19th, the second line there, and then a little further down, the April 22nd, 23rd. Those are just proposed, sort of based on last year. I think they were on similar days. And I believe last year there was a day scheduled and then a second day scheduled if needed. So we've tried to account for that. I'd like to take any feedback y'all have now, or you can look at your calendars between now and Thursday and we can discuss those dates. But wanted to go ahead and get something on your radar so that we can start planning for that internally and be prepared for those meetings.
I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, we kind of crammed a lot in one day and maybe missed some of the finer details of our planning and budget retreat because as our town is growing, it's hard to cover everything in one day anymore. So I think that maybe not a second optional day, but a second dedicated day. And I don't know if that's something that we do here on site or go for like a retreat like other municipalities do. Is that always on site or?
Yeah, I think historically it's been on site. But we've also did many of our retreats actually at the state park. And so we've done it off-site. I think the last few years have been because we've had the staff present and having them fairly close by where they could kind of go in and out if they needed to. It's kind of the rationale. Again, it's not etched in stone, it's just kind of how we kind of change things. But any direction you want to provide, and again, I think the optional date has, again, been traditional. We've done both. So we've had 2 days and partial days, a day and a half, and just depends how you guys want to do it.
If I had my personal opinion, I think it would be nice to have staff get away and not have to go in and out, so that they can just get away from the office and present when they can. If they're not presenting, just relax and enjoy the time away from the office. Just my personal opinion.
I agree.
Any other feedback?
How does staff feel about that?
If y'all rather stay in the office, okay?
Yeah. I mean, it is like a getaway for some of them because they work in little satellite offices, right? Not many of them are even here at town hall.
So Justin, maybe it might be best if you talk to staff, like outside of us, because it seems like everybody's hesitant to respond to us, so, and then get a consensus, and then, Mayor, what you think about that?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Good feedback. And I, again, I don't, 1 or 2 days, it doesn't really matter to me necessarily. I think part of our thought process is, let's start putting the agenda together and then kind of determine how and what we want to discuss. There's some things, maybe we can get that agenda, a month before, at least tentatively, and then we kind of decide if it's going to be a day or two, what that might look like.
We can do that. We're certainly already starting to talk about what that's gonna look like from our side, how we wanna kind of shape it to be, so, please, if y'all have thoughts, things you've liked and disliked in the last few years, please let me know. But yeah, we'll work on a draft and work towards that.
I have a question about the boards. It seems like we have a lot of applicants coming in as we appoint people up. Are there any more openings aside from meeting with Steve when he can come here?
I think Board of Adjustment has another opening. Planning Board will be full. ABC will be full. DRB, I think they have one opening, and
Now, is that,
BOA has one opening.
do those have to be in-town residents for BOA and DRB, or?
DRB, it doesn't matter, right? It's more
Okay.
professionals. The BOA, I'll have to look and see. It's an
Okay.
alternate position. I'm not sure if it's in town or out of town.
Okay.
I'll have to look on that.
It was brought to my attention that our retreat date might conflict with essentials. So we may have a couple of board members who might be.
On the 19th.
Okay.
19th through 20th.
We can look at some alternate dates.
First session.
Day of the week. It's 18th, 19th is Wednesday, Thursday, so Tuesday, Wednesday potentially, or could shift it back a week or two or forward. We'll look
Yeah,
at.
please don't do it the same week.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, we'll look at the calendar and see what else is going on and see which way we need to move it. Bring y'all something on Thursday.
Okay.
You know, I have a question about the consent agenda. Why are we doing September and not December? Is we that far behind on approving?
On the minutes?
Yeah.
Yes, because we're having a meeting, closed session, a special meeting, a closed session, a meeting, a closed session. So yes, I'm behind, plus with training.
I think I saw last night, so I've been behind, I saw this one.
Yep, I'm slowly
Because
catching
I
up.
always remember we did it, the one from the previous one.
Right, yeah, a little bit behind, a couple months.
Isabella will get her caught up.
Yeah, Isabel, pressure on.
Okay, if there's nothing else, motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session.
Motion motion to go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 318-11A3 to consult an attorney. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made, receive the second. Pick or choose, you've got.
One of the
two.
Harrises, just the
Yeah,
Harris.
pick a Harris.
Same thing.
Who all do we need in the room? Just the attorney, Mr. Longino, and the clerk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion